What's going on, YouTube? Today we have a battle. Forget the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight. Forget Jake Paul versus McGregor, all right? Because we're going back to retro time. We have to settle the score right now. Which system was better? Was it the Sega Genesis or was it the Super Nintendo? And of course, I would love to know which one you all think was a lot better. Let me know in the comments below. Were you team Super Nintendo or were you team Sega Genesis? Today we're gonna break down everything from when the consoles came out to their exclusive games to a breakdown between one type of game, which one was actually better, and a breakdown of their sound, their gameplay, and what type of games they would like to bring out. So here we go, going over both consoles, and here they are. Super Nintendo released on August 23rd in 1991 compared to the Sega Genesis released on October 29th, 1988. The CPU for the Super NES was a Ryko 5A22, while the CPU for the Sega Genesis was a Motorola 68000. Resolution, we have, it looks like Sega Genesis was a little bit higher at 320 by 224, while the Super Nintendo had a 256 by 224 pixels. When it came to colors, Super Nintendo took over with 32,768, which is 15 bits compared to 9 bits and 512 colors for the Sega Genesis. And sound, we got an 8-channel ADP, CM, and a 6-channel FM synthesis for the Sega Genesis. What does that mean? I don't know. The sound was great. The music was great. We just finished playing Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo, and I have to admit, the soundtracks were a lot better on these systems than they were right now. Honestly, when it came to both systems, they both had their own little features on it. When it came to the actual controllers, Super Nintendo was a lot more superior. They had obviously the 4 buttons here, plus your 2 buttons on the top, and obviously the buttons you have here. Sega Genesis, they came out with a system with only 3 buttons to start off with. They did come out with a controller later on that had another 3 buttons on the top, where you're able to play games like Mortal Kombat, and of course, Eternal Champions as well. But we go to the exclusive titles right now, and between both systems, you had the Super Nintendo had obviously Super Mario World, defining platformer with polished gameplay with vibrant graphics. The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, one of my favorite RPG action adventure games. Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, they're genre-defining RPGs with groundbreaking storytelling. Super Metroid, masterpiece in atmospheric exploration, and Donkey Kong Country pioneered re-rendered 3D graphics on a 16-bit console. Now, the Sega Genesis had their exclusive titles, which is Sonic the Hedgehog series, which is a fast-paced platformers that became Sega's flagship series. Streets of Rage series, renowned for its gameplay and incredible soundtracks. Shining Force, a standout tactical RPG. Gunstar Heroes, a fast and explosive run-and-gun shooter. And Phantasy Star 4, a sci-fi RPG ahead of its time. When it came to the exclusive titles, if I look at both of them right now, I have to honestly give a little bit of an S to the Super Nintendo when it came out here, because you had obviously Donkey Kong, you had Metroid, you had Legend of Zelda, and you had Mario. Sega, yes, Streets of Rage was great, but you had Final Fight on the Super Nintendo. Sonic the Hedgehog is amazing, 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, which came with an adapter to it. But if I had to go between Phantasy Star and Shining Force compared to Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI, you gotta give the edge to Super Nintendo. So when it came to exclusive titles, Super Nintendo, I'm sorry, but yeah, you actually won this one. But when we go to key differences, we're gonna go to one game. The system came out with a lot of games that were kind of identical. We've played the Batman and Robin game for both the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Sega Genesis was a lot more harder, more grittier, while the Super Nintendo was a lot more calm and more relaxed, making it a lot more easier to play. I enjoy the Super Nintendo version one because it made me more think about the actual TV show, Batman Adventures of Batman and Robin, back in the day when I used to grow up. But when we look at Aladdin was made by Virgin Interactive, by Sega, and Capcom, which is one of the top companies out there, by Super NES. Now, on graphic style, Genesis version had a superior animation quality due to Disney's involvement. Gameplay, Super NES version focused on platforming and agility, while Genesis version leans more towards combat. Music, both versions miss out on Arabian Nights. Both the Genesis versions includes Prince Ali and One Jump Ahead, while Super Nintendo version has a whole new world level. Abu is only present in the Super NES version. Both versions have their strengths and weaknesses, and it ultimately comes down to a personal preference. Do you have a favorite between the two? Now, I played the Sega Genesis one live on stream, and honestly, I think that one's a lot better. Yes, Apu only shows up in the Super NES version. He is in the Sega Genesis version, but he's in like secret levels where you're getting like the bonus levels and all that. So When I look at both games, I honestly gotta think that Sega made it a little bit more harder on these games. Mortal Kombat, when you had it both on Sega and on Super Nintendo, Sega superior. Aladdin, Sega superior. Jurassic Park, Super Nintendo was a lot more cartoonish. Sega Genesis was a lot more grittier and more realistic. I give that one to the Sega Genesis when it came to games that were both on both consoles. Now, when it came to the graphics side of things, Super Nintendo was known for its vibrant and detailed graphics. Thanks to its advanced graphics chip, games often feature large, colorful sprites and detailed backgrounds. Notable for its use in Mode 7 graphics, which allowed for scaling and rotation of effects, evident in games in F-Zero and Super Mario Kart. Now, the Sega Genesis was praised for its blast processing capability, allowing for faster and smoother gameplay. Games typically had more detailed and complex backgrounds, known for its ability to handle more on-screen sprites, which is beneficial for action-packed games. When you look at both games, Sega and Super NES, I have mentioned that Super Nintendo had a lot of cool games out there, but it is true. I think Sega Genesis, when it came to like Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Ultra Beast, all these type of games, they were far, far superior. Even Kid Chameleon is far superior than playing an Adventure Island game. So when I look at both systems, I have to give the graphics, honestly, to the Sega Genesis, which makes it now a 2-to-1 on both consoles. And I think Sega Genesis was trying to one-up, you know, obviously the Super Nintendo, and I think they did a very good job. Super Nintendo did come out with a lot more games that gave us that story, but Sega gave us that more aspect of it's in your face type of game. We're gonna go into the cultural impact of both systems here. Now, the Super NES is widely regarded as one of the greatest consoles of all time. Helped solidify franchises like Mario, Zelda, and Final Fantasy. Played a significant role in the console wars of the early 90s, often seen as more of a friendly option. Sega Genesis was known for more edgier, more mature appeal. Polarized characters like Sonic the Hedgehog, who became Sega's mascot. Also, a major player in the console wars, appealing to a slightly older demographic with its more aggressive marketing and game library. I think Super Nintendo did an amazing job creating all these characters. We have continued with Mario all the way. We have continued with Zelda. Final Fantasy, the only one that they lost. After 6, it went to PlayStation. So they lost the rights to Final Fantasy on that part. But they had Pokemon that they built up on it. And Sega really had Sonic, and they continue with Sonic. Yeah, they came out with Vector Man. Yeah, they came out with, you know, Crazy Taxi. They came out with Knights, which kind of didn't work out that well, which is like the purple, you know, gesture character out there. Kid Chameleon came out there as well. Eternal Champions were trying to compete with Street Fighter. It's very hard to know what the culture impact was because each one had what they needed. But if I were to look into it now, and yeah, Sega's trying to make a comeback right now because Sega's trying to revamp all these games. If you look at Shinobi and you look at Ninja Gaiden, I like Ninja Gaiden a little bit better than Shinobi. I think Super Nintendo takes out the culture impact and wins this one right now for my side. Making it a tie right now. It's 2-2. Cultural impact, I think in the future, obviously has been Super Nintendo. Sega's done a great job. I'm gonna be honest with you. With the Sonic movies, they've been doing a great job. The Mario movie is great. A Mario Land is coming out. We don't have a Sega Land, so I think that might have hurt them a little bit right there, because I can't wait to go to that new world in Universal. We go to Sound of Music, because the hills are alive, all right? Because the Super Nintendo has superior sound chip, allowed orchestral quality music. Example is Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, even Mega Man X had an amazing soundtrack. Richer, fuller sound effects as well, while the Genesis had FM synthesis created a distinct grittier sound. Streets of Rage, Sonic, Splatterhouse was another one. More suited for energetic rock style compositions, but lack depth compared to the Super Nintendo. Now when I look at both of these, I honestly God have to agree. I was jamming the other day when we were playing Mega Man because the sound was just so great, and it's like I just continue playing and playing and playing. I just can't stop. I think, yes, Sega has some good soundtracks, but if I looked at every single game that was out there, Streets of Rage had an amazing soundtrack. It was great. Even when you saw the characters, you're like, oh, that's Wolverine, that's Michael Jackson, that's this. It wasn't them, but you know. Michael Jackson Moonwalker had a great soundtrack as well. But man, shit. Sound and Music, does it go to a tie? Because they both had great ones and they both had different styles. Like one will be more into like a techno style, the other one's more of a rocker style. I might make this into a tie, which will put it right now as a 3-3. Like, we might not know which one's gonna win here, guys, because the only thing left I have right here is the legacy. And the Super NES is remembered for its timeless classics and pushing gaming technology forward. Its library remains among the most celebrated, while the Genesis pioneered fast-paced gaming and offered a unique experience with edgier games carving a lasting fan base. I sit here and I wonder to myself, I've played The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and we did a randomizer play of it. We've played Mega Man X recently. We played a lot of Super Nintendo games, and we played a lot of Sega Genesis games. My girlfriend will sit in the room and she'll play Sonic all day until she gets all the freaking Chaos Emeralds and she turns into, you know, Golden Sonic. It's kind of now making me wonder, like, is Super Nintendo still better than Genesis? Like, if I were to sit down right now and go, all right, let's pop in a game, let's start playing, I can probably play both. But which ones am I looking forward to playing in the future? Right now, I've been sitting down and trying to plan out my next streams for Retro Thursdays. I have Super Metroid being planned out. Obviously, Kid Chameleon's gonna be one that's gonna be planned out. Donkey Kong will probably be planned out. And I'm wondering, like, Final Fantasy VI is being planned out for our RPG weekends. And I'm wondering to myself, is Super Nintendo's legacy better than Sega? Or Sega's better because Sega is going to be coming back out with all these games, and I've gotten excited finding out that Sega's, you know, bringing back Eternal Champions, they're bringing back Kid Chameleon, Jet Set Radio, they're bringing Crazy Taxi back, they're bringing back, you know, Sonic Frontiers. And I think Sonic's died out with the new games that come out. I can't pick one. I can't. It makes it to the point that they both have a great legacy out there. I just don't know which one's better. Which characters I which characters do I fall in love in more? You know, I love Mega Man. I love, you know, Splatterhouse, which is like Jason for me. It's, you know, Altered Beast turning into that monster and all that. That was like one of the first games that came out, and it just made you different. Mortal Kombat is iconic for the legacy from the Sega Genesis. I think if it would have only been on Super Nintendo, it wouldn't be as big as it is right now. You know, Virtual Fighter was a huge game for the Sega Genesis. I can't decide between the two, and I have to decide because this is the deciding factor right now. Which one's gonna win? And you know what? The winner for my legacy, for the console battle and winning this. I'm gonna have a lot of hate out there, and you guys can write down whatever you want in the comment section below and let me know if you like it or not. Sega Genesis takes it. I'm gonna have a lot of hate coming out. I know I'm gonna have a lot of hate coming out at me. But the Sega Genesis takes it. I think Sega Genesis legacy is coming back. It's gonna be a lot better. We're gonna enjoy it a lot more when they release everything we're releasing. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's coming out. I'm excited as a retro streamer, retro player, retro gamer from the 80s and the 90s to be able to play these games all over again, because we all fell in love with these games, and that's what we're all here to do, is to play these games. But of course, I want to know what you all think. Which one would you have thought is a better legacy? Did the Super Nintendo give you that legacy? Was it the Sega Genesis? Let me know now in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to check out this video, because if you haven't, it's about all the games that came out in the year 2000 that are pretty great, and you should be playing them out there as well. My name is Mr. Angry Troll. Peace out, retro players.